Welcome once more to the Dodgy Reg podcast with me, Richard Foreman. This time it's Richard who thinks he's come up with a conspiracy theory of his own, but it takes Dodgy Reg to put him straight. Thus, the decades of dodgy dealings by fossil fuel companies get packaged and gift-wrapped in the fungal entity theory. It's been a good few years now since my first encounter with Dodgy Reg. In that time, I've found myself both questioning every tenet that once formed what I thought was a coherent view of our world, and attempting to pour scorn on seemingly daft ideas about extraplanetary influence on human affairs, ruthless cabals that dictate the conditions of our existence, surreptitious observation of the populace, mind manipulation, and all else that lurks in my friend's conceptual baggage. The question I'm left with is, how do you comb through all the doubts and winkle out the certainties? Well, here's one that I am becoming pretty certain about. One certainty. As far back as 1957, fossil fuel companies were made fully aware of the disastrous consequences of their industry's continuing expansion. I first heard of this from an ex-oil company worker some years ago. At that time, for me, this information was hearsay only. Since then, some incontrovertible facts have come to light. Over the 50 years that followed, companies such as Exxon and Shell employed scientists to study the consequences of global warming. They predicted with considerable accuracy the phenomena we are faced with today: melting ice caps, massive changes in planetary weather systems and all. And the companies covered it up, campaigned publicly and lobbied consistently to cast doubt on findings which they privately knew were on the nail. That, to me, has all the makings of a conspiracy. Even with the documents that support it now publicly exposed, they claim misrepresentation. And they have the power to maintain this stance. The next World Climate Conference, COP28, will, I read, take place in the United Arab Emirates. Its president, Sultan Al Jaber, CEO of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. What? Sooner or later, Reg turns up at my front door on one of his random visits. He looks just a tad surprised at the genuine welcome in my eyes and the evident enthusiasm with which I usher him in. After I've complimented him on the Hawaiian-style jazzy shirt he's wearing, his latest charity shop purchase, and brewed up our coffees, I begin. Okay, Reg, I wish to share with you, and I can't help but wag a finger as I'm saying this, a little theory of my own. He listens to my revelations, thoughtfully picking out what are possible breadcrumbs from the straggles of his beard and flicking them down onto my carpet. You know, Rich, that's common knowledge, at least among, well, what shall I say, the cognoscenti. But it doesn't really qualify as a theory. I'd class it as an observation. Oh, I fold my arms abruptly. And by what grace does an observation get to qualify as a theory? Reg emits a thoughtful sniff. Needs a little filling out for a start. Some sense of the shady characters who are pulling the strings. Wouldn't do any harm if you could say there were a couple of press-darling politicians involved, or maybe a celebrity who's got drawn into the scam. You know what I mean? #Tom Cruise, eh? He gives me a cheeky wink, pulls out his Rizzlers and a plastic tobacco pouch emblazoned with close-ups of diseased lungs. Sod the celebrities. I'm serious about this. The shady characters is corporate capitalism going unchecked. Same course they took with the tobacco industry, he observes, dropping shreds of the stuff into the fold of his cigarette paper. Kept their engines going for a good few years until they were ready to shift their markets to Africa and such. All right. Corporate capitalism. Who's behind that then? It's just a system. When it started, no one thought it through. Now it does what it does. That's all. A self-perpetuating entity. A malignant one, like a virus. He pauses to flick his tongue along the strip of dried glue that edges the paper. Diverts human beings into short-term, self-seeking activity. Yeah, like those fungi that get into ants and compel them to climb to the top of trees. The ants die horribly and distribute spores over quite an arc. He flicks the wheel on his lighter repeatedly until it flames, lights his roll-up, draws deeply, and exhales pungent smoke with a near sigh of satisfaction. Yeah, it's on its way to being a theory, just needs a little bit more precision. Really, Reg? I had no idea how finely crafted these things were. Well, it's about time you became a little more appreciative, innit? What else do we need? Some sort of mechanism that diverts the attention of the general public? Something to get the majority all hot and bothered one way or the other? What? Like QAnon? All in one, Rich. We have talked of this before, have we not? Keep the media playing on that sort of paranoia. Make sure all the juicy stories keep way clear of the real threat. But get people concerned, whichever side of the argument they're on. He pauses for a drag, smiles. You know, I think we're building something here. I respond with a grimace. There's no call to get so jolly about it, Reg. It's madness. I mean, why would they do that? Those companies could have changed course and started developing the alternatives 50 or 60 years ago. It could even have been in their own interests. Oh, it's Reg's turn to wag a finger. Remember, the fungus, the ants. They wouldn't even see that as a possibility if they were under the control of a malignant fungal entity. One that has bamboozled the human race with the delusion we refer to as corporate capitalism, as you put it. Now, I don't know what sort of an explanation you were thinking of, but this is a lot more believable. This has all the hallmarks you need, never mind the Great Reset. If big fungus gets its way, we all end up lolling vacantly from the tops of trees, spreading their spores. Spores. Right. I'm skirting bewilderment, unable to comprehend exactly where this is going. Then it dawns on me. It's a PR job. I can see the look in Reg's eyes. He's soaring across the cyber zones, pulling in the gamers like a digital Pied Piper. It's the way you get believers to follow you, without question. You might like to think about using the term corporate capitalism, mind, he continues, seemingly oblivious to any sign of dubiousness on my part. Right-wingers would smell communism, see? Let's just go for the super rich. They're in pretty low esteem these days. How the fungus affects the upper echelon is that it gives them a penchant for necrophilia, so the more dead, the better. But of course, they know it will probably rebound on them eventually. That's why they're so keen on developing space travel. OK, Reg, I say in my best seize-the-moment voice. Enough with the ramifications. So, we can add no end of bells and whistles to the basic story, take it right out of woke territory, and the masses will lap it up. Is that your take on it? He gives a modest shrug. Just giving you some options, mate. You're the writer. Cook it up however you please. And pack it with salacious and horrifying details. Worked for QAnon, didn't it? I really don't want to go there. Suit yourself. But the further we get into the end times, you might wish you hadn't been so picky. Later, after we somehow drifted from the impending apocalypse into comparing notes on films we'd seen, as you do, and a further 5 minutes on the poor quality of the coffee I've provided, Reg is on his way. I've opened a window, and the smoky odour has dissipated. I pause to ponder. Is it really that easy? Has Reg just given me the recipe? With the low standards of conspiracy theories that even he despises, it is indeed quite compatible. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the lot of them, they beckon me forwards, while I shrink back in fear. Next time, Reg hears a rumour that Richard is writing stories about him, and Richard has to do some pretty fast talking.